Welcome back, everyone, to another new episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. It's just Amanda and I this week. We're kind of just going to do an on the fly. It's been a minute, kind of check in with everybody going into, well, today was the first official day after daylight savings and holidays and just the time of year. So we're going to check in with each other and kind of check in with everybody. So if you missed our last episode, we had Jessica Harrington and we talked all about self-love over stress, basically. So how, to separate those things and how to actively choose self-love and release and reduce and manage stress. How are you today, Amanda?
Callie's a vibe. For those of you that are on YouTube or watching the video version of that, my cat Callie is usually making an appearance, and she's a vibe this morning. I'm good. I got my coffee. I was nervous about daylight savings. When you have a little human, like these things suck when like daylight savings is a thing because your little human doesn't understand that it's daylight savings, right? So I was like, this kid's gonna be up at like 6 a.m. Nope. Didn't wake up until like 8:30. I'm like, oh, this is
think that
wonderful.
the rainy, slow start helped. It's so down here, it's really cloudy and soggy this morning. So I was like, but I think I messaged you this morning before we started like the recording and stuff. I was like, I'm wide awake, man. I could not go back to sleep at 7 a.m. and then took a shower. And then right before recording, I was like, I could literally go back to sleep.
So this episode, so I was saying before we started recording, Kelsi and I like obviously love the same things. We're all about the same things. We hyper focus on the same things. We nerd out about the same things and different things too. Like Kelsi's like a master gardener pretty much, and I kill everything green, so I don't touch it. But when it comes to like social work, psychology, social sciences, human rights, all the advocacy, we are like totally in alignment. So needing to do an impromptu episode is not a hard thing for us. But just know that it's not going to be as bulleted and organized as most of our shows today.
Hopefully we were supposed to have, I don't know if we got a rescheduled date for her, but we're excited. She'll be back at some point. We were going to be with Christina. I
think it's Guarino.
Mm-hmm. Fellow TikTok creator, but we'll toss in and we'll jump in but I'm excited. We're excited to have Christina come back and whatever she reschedules.
So I think this daylight savings conversation is a good starting point for today. Did you know there's actually like a whole group, I don't know if group's the right word, but like sector of folks, people advocating to not have it. And like daylight savings is only a thing in the US. Like it's not, or I mean, maybe other countries too. I'm not an expert in this, but like there's lots of places that don't do daylight savings. Like
there's a lot. I think even our neighbor, I think Indiana, I should have researched this more, but I know it's very impromptu, guys. But I think Indiana doesn't do it. And I don't know if you heard, and I haven't fully confirmed it, which probably wouldn't take just a second on good old Google, but I think this is the last year for us, for Ohio.
Oh, they're getting rid of it.
Like we have to fall back this time and then spring forward one more time. Like we have to do one more rotation because the law passed or whatever to get rid of it.
It's wild that it's a law that has to be passed that tells you what time it is.
Yes. What time that you need to
be. Like the sun is not enough for letting you know what time of day it is.
No.
Capitalism needs to get itself in there.
I was like, we all know why it became a thing and why it exists. And I am not sad that it's going to be gone. It really, I feel like everybody's different. I think humans were impacted by it, but I'm really impacted by like the weather, like time, like how much sleep I get. Like I'm just so sensitive to things. I mean, my surroundings really impact me. And like I said, I know they impact all of us, but I do feel like it's like on a spectrum. Some people are like less impacted by it, like how they feel, how they function and things. But for me, man, this stuff, like come wintertime, the seasonal changes, the seasonal affective depression is a very real thing. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a lot of clients that definitely feel the feels too.
I would love to feel like it's not supposed to be like it's not a valid thing. Well, capitalism, it all comes full circle, but It is a real thing.
I don't know, it's hard for me because it's like, I wonder what it would be like people, like, I want to ask my uncle in Florida, like, hey, how do you feel when the seasons change? Because I know like the temperature changes, but obviously they don't get
Yeah,
as drastic as we do here.
right. Um, my travel. So that's how I help curb something. People think, oh, you just travel to go on vacation. And you and I had this conversation, but travel is huge for me, especially at least once or twice whenever it is right in the thick of it, right in the thick of it getting dark while I'm still working and almost dark
Mm-hmm.
when I'm getting up to go, kind of start my work day, like and freezing. We're in Ohio, so like it gets so cold and
Unmotivating.
yeah, I have to like the motivation, mood, but also like my creativity and
Mm-hmm.
the my brain's momentum, not just my body and my energy too. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to kind of, it's hard to come back. I do have to kind of accommodate whenever I come back. But I think that I don't know, I think it
It
would
just,
be very different if I live somewhere different than Ohio, like Florida.
and I also wonder, like, because of capitalism effect, and I'm so glad this is coming in because that was part I was going to bring into what we were talking about anyway. But I also wonder in other countries, even if they do have drastic changes in weather, if they experience seasonal affective disorder
I
or
know.
if like, and then the other thing I was going to say is like, I've talked about this before, but like we get so advanced in society, but we forget that like we are so primal in our day-to-day functioning that like our body, our circadian rhythm, like all of those things take cues from our environment. So like it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you look outside or you walk outside to work and it's nighttime, your primal body's like, oh, it's time to
Right.
rest. But no, we still have
No.
to go to the grocery store. We still have to go home
Yeah.
and make dinner. We
Start
still have to,
producing melatonin while we're like
yeah.
still working or just got done working. It's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I have like a whole lot of thoughts, but I would be curious, like if I know that there's research studies out there, and because I mean, I follow a lot of different tourism accounts on social media, and when we visited Aruba, um, it's interesting because they are so close to the equator, and they don't do daylight savings time. So like every day in the cycle of the day is exactly the same 365 days a year. Like you watch the sunset at the same exact time every day, and that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
change based on, a law or and their motto is one happy island. And I'm like, how much of that has to do with like the fact that it's beautiful, but also your bodies are just like this is, and
Then,
probably like the social climate. It's like island time is a real thing, traveling is
mm-hmm.
a privilege, and I acknowledge that. But I leave here and I go somewhere like that, and I can tell, somebody's not in a hurry to stand in line to get a smoothie. Like even if
Mm-hmm.
they're locals, like you can go to a local restaurant, it feels totally different.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember when we went to Jamaica and we were like, I had that cultural shock because I'm so, even if like I don't believe in it and I don't want to be that way, I am so
Right. You
ingrained in the American society of like hurry, do, achieve, hurry up. Oh my gosh. Like, and I'm not an asshole about it. Like, excuse my words,
right,
but like I'm not like, oh my God, hurry up, give me my Starbucks. But like
right.
we go to like one
It's
of the
so
restaurants at the
physical.
resort and we're like we stand up at the little thing waiting for the hostess and they take a while and they're just over there like chatting with the other employees, whatever, like they're not quote unquote working, they're chatting and
Right.
they're socializing, whatever. And my American brain's like, hi, customer
Yeah.
waiting. So they finally come over to us and they're like, oh, okay, too, okay, we'll be with you soon. And then they go back to talking and there's all these open tables, right? Like there's not a wait at all, there's plenty of open tables. And me and my husband are sitting there and we're like, okay, I'm hungry, like, are you gonna, what's going on, are you gonna sit us? And I had to like check myself and my
Yeah.
privilege and my American culture and just be like, Amanda,
Um,
just sit the F down and breathe and take in the moment for a minute, like you don't need to be in a
right.
hurry.
Yeah. And the difference, I'm sure they get people that react and, immediately respond on that, or, out of rudeness or impatient things. But it's like, yeah, probably a lot of people that go to these places are within that similar culture. So they're just like, yeah, we're here. It's so much more mindful in other places. And then come here, yeah, whenever these changes kind of come and they hit me, it's like I lose that connection with that mindfulness, and I need to get better at either that's harsh, not adapting, but figuring out how I can still access my things, but in a way that is so I can accommodate the fact that it's winter time or that it's dark. Because
that's a good point.
I love to garden. I have house plants, but I'm like, maybe I can research. Maybe I can like grow things in pots, but still in my house and still get
very limited, like indoor garden. Yeah.
I feel like for me, my experience, and I feel like I'm not the only one, but it feels so all or nothing. Like I have access to all the things and I get very dependent on those things. And then come what we're getting ready to kind of sink into, I'm like, no.
I think that's such a good point, because I was going to bring up like, hey, for the people that are listening, we're both therapists and we also feel the things too. So like, what do we recommend to our clients, or what do we do for ourselves to put up with? Well, that's how I feel about it. To put up with seasonal affective issues, to put up with the transition in seasons. And I think you just hit the nail on the head, is that we have this like all or nothing perspective, and not that like it's not valid. Like you can't get outside in the warmth and ground your feet like barefoot without, having freezing cold feet. Like it's very different. There's not as much availability of those things. But I think we've taught ourselves to be so reliant on that our brain is like, this is a deficit and it doesn't exist,
so
and it sucks and it's terrible and we're spiraling. And then I think it adds to the negativity and the depression, and and I guess maybe like, I don't know, what do we recommend to our clients / like what can we even brainstorm here like today as we're talking that helps with that?
It's so funny because when I say this out loud, and in my own therapy with my own therapist, like I don't say it out loud anymore, because I'm like, Kelsi, like we said just a second ago, you're a human dealing with the human things too. And you're within yourself. You're so close to it. Like teaching a client that is not even close to being the same thing as telling that same thing to yourself. So it's like,
neither is intellectualizing. That's where I get with my own therapist. She'll be like, okay, that's great, but how do you feel about that? And I'm like, I don't know. I only can think and intellectualize and rationalize.
You're like, well, let me go backwards. Say all of that to say, like, I remember having my frame of reference, right? We're therapists. So in my work, I had a client who went from living in like a single family home and being able, still more urban, but had more space and was able to do like, more outdoor things. And we came up with just like a little system and a way to do those things, but from a balcony instead, because she was living in a second or third story apartment. And I'm like, okay. And then we found local green spaces or, things like that. Not so much focused around winter, just more space. But when it comes, I just get so consumed with the emotional discomfort piece of it that I think I go there, and then my logical brain is not online to come up and brainstorm the things. But as I said,
even that though, like the greenhouses, the plant stores, like those all still exist. So if you're privileged enough to have the access to be able to even go, like, even if you can't buy anything, like even just get up there and be in the green in a warm space. Like, and then I don't know what the actual research is on these these lights. I have one. I don't know. I got one for like $15 on Amazon. I leave it on literally like all the time. Like, I don't care what season it is. I leave this light on because I'm like, well, can't hurt.
It's the same thing.
I usually talk to my clients about that. Like, I don't know, like it's, if you want to, check one out and see if it helps at all, it can't hurt.
I've heard they make
I've had
light
people.
bulbs.
Oh, like, they do.
For your house. I'm like,
yeah.
Might get one, at least for my office space, because I spend so much time in here most of the time. So
I think also like I think we have to validate, like it's almost like an acceptance and commitment thing, like accepting that if I live in a state where this happens, that's going to be the thing, and then I have to commit to like, it's almost like we like value or place more emphasis or more importance on the things that we have access to and can do in the warmer winter or warmer months, and then when winter comes, it's like I said before, like I have nothing, and it's like, wait, hold on, how can we plan ahead? Because if you know, I think that's the thing too that I talk to a lot of clients about is like, whether it's seasonal affective disorder or if it's like a grief anniversary or something along, like, this happens every year. So let's be proactive. So let's make a list now. Like, what are things that you really enjoy doing that you can do regardless of what the weather is? And maybe those are things that you don't do now because you're so like focused on getting out of the house. So maybe you like really love like this is a nerdy, weird, like simple example, but like maybe you really love puzzles, but you don't do puzzles because you love being outside gardening. And then winter comes and you get depressy and you just lay on the couch and watch Netflix and you forget that you have puzzles.
Yeah. And like my literal, it's so physical, like it goes all the way down to the physical place where when I can tell not just the emotional, the thought processes and how I feel emotionally, but my physical body, like it just starts to hurt. And then I hold all of the tension physically. And then you get so stuck. And then I think when you live in a place where, hey, all of these changes are going to be coming. We know they come every year. I think we get programmed to view the warm or, brighter, lighter time of year, more time in nature is like precious. It's valued so much higher. So I'm like, being proactive. I've tried to do a bit more of that for myself. And even if it's just changing my physical space or like in the wintertime is when I'll do a lot of like, for me, cleaning or refreshing things is helpful. Like this winter, we're going to try to do some home renovation stuff. And I will start to kind of slowly be like, okay, maybe a new bed set, or maybe if I would clean or rearrange this, not even spend money, but like, how do I rearrange, reorient, and give myself a fresh place to ground if I have to be inside? And
that's huge too, is like, do you have a safe place? Because for a lot of folks, like they might not have that unless it's outside or away from the home. So where can you create that, even if it's a visualization in your mind?
And I remember being there like when I was young and still lived at home and chaos, our own stuff. And what I would do, my usual thing I would do would be to go outside, and I think I've said this on other episodes, I'd be in our creek and I would just I would catch all the things, I would release all of the things, but like just all the pretty rocks and the water and
the crawdads
and the tadpoles and the frogs and all of the things. And then come wintertime, I feel like I can tell, and I've talked with my own therapist, like a lot of it's still conditioned. Like I still have some associations with, when we all get inside with one another and there isn't a whole lot of things that help us get physical space. Like, oh, things are different now.
It can feel like you're trapped, like that trauma response. Like even if you're in a different situation now where it is safe, it can, ignite that like trauma response in your body. I think too, like there's so much beauty in winter that we forget. Like
it is.
The first snow, like looking, I mean, I was gonna say, have you ever looked at a snowflake? But like, duh. But like looking at the intricacies of a freaking snowflake, like they are beautiful, and they're like thumbprints or fingerprints. They're all like uniquely different, and they're so intricate and beautiful, like little spider webs. And then the glistening of like the top of the snow and like how beautiful it looks when it all falls before like my dogs run through it. The like silence that winter snow brings. It's like very, I don't know how to describe it, but it is so peaceful for me. And like, even if I'm only outside for 5 minutes in the morning while I'm letting my dogs out, but just like mindfully taking that in with my warm cup of coffee in my hand is everything.
And I noticed I don't do those types of things, like take the really intentional mindful time, because like my creek doesn't disappear. Like it's like like the house I grew up in is right down the road. So then it's the same creek. I'm just right down the road. And like, there's been times where I'll let myself just like build up all the things, whether it's stress, whether it is the, seasonal depression, and it's right there. Like I can still walk out, put a coat on, put on some shoes, boots, and walk out there. And it looks totally different, which can be such a beautiful thing. But why I don't think more often.
Because it's cold. So why would I go to the creek? Like we've associated this and
it's like, I don't like that. And then I don't do it, but it could be so helpful.
I think this just compounds too, like we were talking about. Okay, so like if you're someone that suffers from seasonal affective or just doesn't like the season changing and it doesn't get like a full-on seasonal affective disorder for you, if you're already having that, and then dun, 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 holidays.
Oh yeah.
I know this definitely has cultural differences, right? Like, not every culture has the same time of holidays, and some cultures have holidays throughout different times of the years. However, like traditional Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's type things for a lot of folks, right? Like there's a change in seasons, they're feeling some depressies, they're frustrated because they can't access their coping or self-care or social things. And then, here comes family time with people that you might not even want to be around, or you might want to be around most of the people, but there's that one uncle that's just totally inappropriate, or so then I think we almost have this like,
it gets
I don't want to say this because what was it?
It gets like lumped. It's like they already have this connotation or association with them, and then the social expectations that come along with the holidays, like Christmas season, and you need to be cheery, and it's so beautiful and romantic for some, and then but
you have to decorate, and you cook these things, and you're gonna bake this, like I love Halloween is like one of my favorite holidays. I did not have the capacity to decorate this year. For a minute I was like, like my little kid, like, he's so young, and like, he would love, like I remember last year, even when he was like a baby, he was like, loved it. He was like looking at all the lights and the sound, because we have a lot of really cool Halloween decorations that like make lights and sounds and stuff. And I was like, he would love that. Like I gotta decorate, I gotta figure it out. And then at some point I was just like, you know what? Like you don't have the space for it, and that's okay. He will be fine. Like he's 14 months old. He will never remember that mom didn't decorate for Halloween, right? Like it's giving ourselves grace too, and not trying to keep up with the Joneses, or like comparing yourself to others. And just because, like, I think last year, was it last year or the year before? Last year, we just got like a little like mini Charlie Brown Christmas tree and put it on like an end table, because I didn't have it in me. Like and I knew I wanted something because it was my kid's first Christmas and I had to have something. But like I almost felt, we also hosted with my family, and I don't have, like, my family that I do spend time with isn't like, I don't have too much stress with. They're pretty good. But like I even felt some like, because my mom goes all out, like she decorates her entire house for all the things and keeps up with it somehow, some way. So I had this like internal, like, my mom's gonna be like, why don't you have a tree? Or I can't believe you didn't decorate, or you don't have lights outside, or like, and not, and then it was fine. Like none of that actually happened. So I think I say all that to say, like, just give yourself lots of grace. And if it doesn't make sense for you, it doesn't make sense. Like there is no reason to stress about it to make somebody else happy when they're only gonna, I mean, they don't have to live in your body or your space, right?
No, and all the time up to that, and then the after, cleaning up, putting it away. Like if it feels like too much, just let it be too much. I think we want to like take it away or not feel the too much. So then I either hurry up and I force myself into the things to try to make that go away, or I just try to, I shut down and avoid it altogether. I'm like, just acknowledge it and do the pieces. I'm very values based, and I'm starting to get better at like, okay, what things bring me value and align with my values, because then I'm just going to do those things, not all the things, or all of the things that all of the people are doing, or the things that are traditionally expected to be done. I'm like, no. Okay.
Like even like holiday cards, right?
Oh yeah. No.
Like someone has a baby, someone gets married, someone has a family in general. And they send out every year, they get these beautifully done portraits and they put them on the stupid Vistaprint postcards or they get them actually professionally done and printed out and put them inside a Christmas card.
Yeah.
And then they all send them to me with their beautiful little families. And then I'm over here like, should I be doing that? We haven't even had family photos like since I've had my kid. And I get like, it's a constant, like, I think that's an issue with like social media and like, again, trying to keep up with people. But like, part of me really does want that. Like, I would really love to have a family photo and have the capacity to like send it out to people I care about. And at the same time, I'm like, I keep those for a year. And then when I get next year's, I throw it away. And people that I care about see that stuff regularly anyway. Like Kelsi, you as my friend, not as much because it's hard to keep up with everyone, but like you get to see when I'm really excited and I share pictures of us and our family and what we're doing. You get to see the things on social media that I share. Like, is it really that important that I go get this professional thing done? Probably not, right? And so, yeah, just like giving yourself grace and not comparing yourself to others and doing what makes sense for you. So like my friend Dee, she's been on this podcast before. She's a school counselor and she's so creative. I remember when I was thinking about Rain's first birthday party and I was like, oh, I got to get like legitimate invitations and mail them out to people and take a photo of them, blah, blah, blah. She's like, girl, no, make a digital thing on like Canva or something, make a digital invite and text it to people. And the people that want to be there will be there. And I was like, oh my God, that's so smart. Like, you're so right. Like, who needs an actual paper invite? It is a waste of money. Like, if you're doing it on Vistaprint, you're supporting a huge company. Like, if you're going to do it, support local, but that's expensive. It's like,
right. Well,
and so now that's how I try to pivot.
Yeah. Like the people that send out the Christmas cards, like maybe that is something that they look forward to about that part of the season every year. But it's like, for me, no.
And then even with that too, like Dee was like, hey, I really want to take some family photos. I can't remember what it was for, but they like got a tripod and put her iPhone in the tripod and went to the park and took selfies and they're gorgeous. So like, I don't know. I think that's my whole message is like pivot, make sense what makes sense for you, to your abilities, to your resources, and to your values, like you said.
What I talk about too all the time is the human brain and things are like, we're very situational. You know, if I'm in the midst of, some kind of circumstances or a situation in that moment, everything feels exactly like that moment. Like whether that's, I feel so stressed, I feel so overwhelmed, it can really, dictate how I'm viewing everything else, in that moment. Like, maybe I had just a really stressful, overwhelming day at work. And then my husband comes home and I'm still in that. And then maybe you project that, right? Or I think about the rest of the week and just by default, it's going to be an awful, crappy week. And like,
all the confirmation bias, right?
It will all be constant if we let it. And I think we all need that reminder, whether you are going into holidays, just because it's how it's always been done, doesn't mean that you have to always do it how it's always been done. Like,
yeah. And if you want to start that back, try to check, like this year, you give yourself a break and you do things a little less or different because you don't have the capacity for it. That doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Like next year, you can check in with yourself again and be like, do I have the capacity for that? Because I really do enjoy it and want to do it.
Do things that you genuinely want to do. Like we said, it doesn't have to be the thing, these big extravagant things. Like, for me, I have a winter birthday. So like, it's very difficult for me to try to think about, what everybody's like, what do you want to do for your birthday? And I'm like, well, the things that I would, I catch my things I want to do, I can't do. So then that's the time of year that I intentionally,
I wish you lived here.
Myself.
Because I was just thinking about it the other day. I was like, I'm gonna ask my mom, maybe she'll want to go back to that this year. And I think Rain would like it. So we have this place up here called Stan Hewitt. And it's this beautiful grounds and building and space where they do every year, they do lots of like holidays and things like that, but it's a very historical place in the Akron area. And it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And they decorate for Christmas, like they go all out outside, like with big arches and all the things decorated in themes, and then inside too. And you get to see all the old, like they still have like the bedrooms and bathrooms decorated with all the old things, but you then get to see like Ninja Turtle themed like
Yeah.
Christmas stuff, and I would totally take you for your birthday like that. But that's like what I think. And obviously you live in a very different area, but I'm like, do you have any cool, like, could you see a play? Like you might have to drive for it, but could you go see like a play? Could you, because I know you have access to those resources, and I get not everybody
Right.
does, but like maybe you could rent like something that you wanted to see, or, something like that.
I think, and having these kind of conversations, like, yeah, today wasn't planned, but having these kind of conversations with your support system, and being like, you don't have to come to them and be like, man, I feel so stuck, or I do feel depressed, or just be like, hey, my birthday's coming up, like, me, like, are there things that maybe I'm not able to like see or consider in this moment, like, and if last 3 years I've ended up at the beach, but I want,
Like let's go to a smash room and break stuff for Kelsi's birthday. Like that would be so cathartic.
Gosh, and my birthday is on a holiday, so like that's always, a lot of places though are open for my birthday, but trying to come up with things, because in our area most of the things that people do for New Year's are just not things that I value, or would spend time
Are things that take them out of the present moment.
Correct. Yeah. And so I value new things, new experiences. And sometimes, man, when we find ourselves in the other state, or the theme of things, stress of holidays or seasonal depression, it can be hard to see things differently. So I'm very grateful for having the types of people I've had to work very hard at having the connections, the safe connections that I have now, but use those. Even I can start to feel very lonely or isolating if you are impacted by the types of things we talked about today.
So good. Obviously, like, I don't know, if you've been listening for a while or watching for a while, Kelsi and I could literally talk all day, every day for all the things. Like we could literally just be roommates probably, and just like randomly nerd out about stuff.
Yeah, with our spouses, we were at dinner. What time did we get there? 7? And we didn't leave the restaurant until like 10. We're like,
and we could have stayed there
God,
longer, but they were closing
go.
at 10:30. I think we left at like 10:15 because it looked like they were closing up. But
yeah, we started looking around. Yeah.
All right, everyone. I hope this episode was helpful for you. We're really excited to continue this. This was a pandemic project that we were like, hey, we're bored. It's a pandemic. What could we do? Do you want to start a podcast? And then is it 2 years later? Almost 3 years later? Where are we? I don't even know. Almost 3 years later.
At least probably.
And we were doing weekly episodes, and then we had to like check in with ourselves and be like, that's too much, right? Totally valid. Yep. So now twice a month, every 2 weeks, we have a new episode for the most part, unless there's a cancellation or major change. But so like Kelsi said last week, we had Jessica Harrington, Self-Love Over Stress. That was a really good episode. I highly recommend going back and listening if you haven't, because it's a good continuation of this conversation. And then in 2 weeks, we have Dr. Virgie Bright. We cover all things wellness, right? It's not just mental health. So we are covering more like physical, financial, medical wellness next week. The topic is the only way to pay your medical bill, which I just find so intriguing. I know a lot of people struggle with that stress.
This stuff. I'm gonna have to rein myself in. I know it.
I cannot wait. So make sure you turn on notifications, you subscribe, comment, and give us feedback. What did you like? What didn't you like? What do you want to hear? And stay tuned for our next episode. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.